Andy Johnson, another strategy for you, shared reading for large unit phonics. Everyone believes that phonics instruction is important. Phonics is an important part of learning to read, but it is not reading. Sounding out words is not reading. If your reading instruction is only sounding out words instruction, you are falling far short, because phonics is one of 5 ways to identify words that you don't recognize in print: context, grammar, word order, morphological analysis, analogy, and phonics. And of these, phonics is the least efficient in terms of how much space it takes in short-term memory. Now, there are 3 types of phonics instruction: synthetic phonics, putting sounds to symbols and putting those symbols together, synthesis, to form words; analytic phonics, analyzing words that you see in print. What's the beginning sound you hear in this word? What's the ending sound? Can you find a word that begins with the d, d? Can you find a word that has the in the middle? And large unit phonics, recognizing letter patterns, rhymes, word families, etc. Which one is the most effective? Well, they should all 3. It's not either or, but all 3 should be used. Synthetic phonics is the least efficient, but you should be doing all 3 with beginning and emergent readers and struggling readers. Now, any instruction or intervention that focuses only on phonics impedes rather than enhances learning, the ability to learn to read. You may see short-term gains in sounding out word measures, but there's little transfer to the authentic reading of text, little transfer when students are actually reading, little persistence, meaning it doesn't last very long, and little effect on students' ability to create meaning with print. In any reading instruction, especially with our struggling readers, you need to develop all 3 cueing systems simultaneously. Not just the phonological cueing system, but the semantic and the syntactic cueing system. These are systems the brain uses to recognize words in print. Word study of any type should be found in meaningful context to the greatest extent possible. Students should rarely see words in isolation, because in real life, we rarely see words in isolations. It's always in some type of context. Now, complex learning of any kind, whether it be music, a sport, a skill, occurs best from whole to part. You see the whole, and then you analyze or see how the parts are put together. You get the big picture, and I'll show you an example of that. Shared reading for large unit phonics, Margaret Mustafa. I got this from her. Great ideas here. This is for emergent, beginning, and severely struggling readers, an example of whole to part phonics instruction and or large unit instruction, because it focuses on letter patterns. Now, the English language is far too inconsistent to focus just on letter sounds and patterns. There are no rules. You cannot teach rules or patterns. Different vowel sounds have different letter patterns. It is just not consistent. As well, the way the brain works, words are not stored in long-term memory in terms of letter patterns. Words are stored based on meaning. When you hear the word chicken, in your head, the neural network is not related to short I, but it's related to birds and chickens. That's the way our semantic webs or neural networks work. So instruction should, to the greatest extent possible, reflect how our brain creates meaning with print. So here are the steps. Step 1, share a book with students. Read to students. Point to the words, so they should be able to see the words as you are reading. With older students, and you could do this, struggling readers, grade 3 to 6, you could put words on the screen. Point to the words. Short piece of text, and there's lots of good short text articles that you can use. Step 2, read with the students. Read together, pointing at the words. Choral reading if you have a piece of text that they can all see. Scaffolded oral reading. Whisper reading as they read along as you read with them. But they should reread until fluency is achieved. Usually 2 to no more than 3 or 4 times fluency is achieved. So you read to the students, you read with the students. Step 3 is the students read independently. Ideally, this works if they can turn to a neighbor or read with a buddy. Step 4, you ask students to identify interesting or important words from the text. They either remember or they look back and tell you. As they tell you, you can write them on the board, and again, adopt and adapt. But then you write them on 3x5 cards. Now, if I'm working with older students, you could have them work with a buddy or in small groups. Have one person to be the letter caller and the other one writes them on the card to keep it moving. And then students use the cards to create groups. Now, they arrange them on the desk, and this is why it's great to work in pairs. It's the conversation that takes place. It gets them to notice letters and letter patterns. That's why it's large unit phonics. They could arrange them in groups based on letter sounds, based on letter patterns, or based on meaning or semantics. And here you have an example of vocabulary, an incidental vocabulary lesson that can occur. And again, letter sounds, letter patterns, and or meanings. You could prompt them, beginning sounds, ending sounds, middle sounds, or wide open. Either or. And again, adopt, adapt, see what works best for your students. And then put the words on a word wall of some sort. You decide how this goes. If students are working individually, they can create posters based on their letter patterns, or they could glue them to a large sheet of butcher paper. And again, adopt and adapt. And to extend, you could create writing prompts based on one or more of the words. You could play bingo, Scrabble. Again, you're limited only to your imagination. This should not be reading class in and of itself. Duration 10 to no more than 20 minutes, because you want to get on to the real reading, real writing. That's how reading best develops, reading practice. This is just one small part. Large unit phonics, shared reading.